And I didn't wait till the last minute to do that either. I gave myself 15 minutes, so that was plenty of time, and apparently not.
Okay, well, then it is 10:06 and we'll call the meeting to order. First item is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any improvements, additions, deletions, corrections, etc.?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
This is Pete. I'll second.
Second, before we move on, related to one of Frank's emails that to add consideration or discussion of section 202281.
No.
I can't make that motion, of course, but if anybody would like to move that we put that on the agenda.
This is Danny. I'll make a motion to put this new order of business in regards to section 202281 on the agenda.
Okay, any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I don't believe we have any persons present today other than the board. Is that correct, Bob?
That's correct, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to legislative update.
I do have, this is me, I have two here. One is the bill from the DCP that is put in, and that's to change back the CPE year from which, because there was a change in the last session that moved, it was not supposed to, but it did change the CPE year to ending in October. And there is now legislation in to put it back so it ends in June, as it has been, basically carving out an exception to the new rule for accountancy. And that has been voted out of committee. That was in February 18th. And I have a note here to provide all of you, and I will do that after the meeting, make a note now, with a link to that legislation so you could follow it on your own if you so desire. And there's another bill out there that is more of a general bill that in this, first of all, the one I just mentioned is House Bill 5151. And again, I will send you a link. And then there's another bill out, House Bill 5248. And that is changing a number of different statutes all across the state, mostly mostly with public health, but putting in some language to make it make it a little, I don't know if difficult is the right word, but make it so if you're going to turn down an application for a credential, it has to be something that's more for a reason that, or for a felony that is more suited to or connected to the profession that the person is going for. And section 10 of that bill does change the section 20-281A of the general statutes. So having to do with actually, this isn't even the application, but it is for us to go to take action against a license or a permit. I guess it would be any of the three credentials that we oversee. If in section 8, conviction of a felony, instead of just the conviction of a felony that we could then take action for, it has to be a felony that is reasonably related to the licensee's ability to safely or competently engage in the practice of accountancy. And I have spoken with our legal director about this, and she said that DCP did not have an issue with any of the credentials that were would be affected by this law, because we already have to follow the section 46A-80, which requires that we show that there is a connection between whatever the conviction is. It's always convictions, whatever the conviction is, and the profession, or for that the person going for the credential would be engaging in. So they felt that there was this really doesn't change anything, but I did want to bring it to your attention, and see if there are any concerns.
So if there was someone that was convicted of murder as opposed to embezzlement or something, murder doesn't really have to do with our profession, but could we still say it falls under acts discreditable in our code of ethics?
I would hope so. That's a good. That's one of the first things I thought of when I saw this, and I know, again, under the existing statute, the 46A-80, we would have to do that anyway. But I think we should be. You'd hope so. I mean, I can say in my life in gaming, actually predated me, but the person actually whose position I ended up taking when I joined back in May of 1999, apparently did have a murderer come before him, and I guess he felt that that this person did fit the criteria, and allowed the person to get a gaming license at the time. So, but again, the person was denied initially because of the conviction, and then had to come and show that there had been the requisite rehabilitation. And I think I do believe it would have to be the case here. I mean, because again, it says safely or competently engage in the practice. I mean, if the person's a murderer, then you could very much argue that it's not safe for potential clients.
But that was just one that I was off the top of my head that I thought was unrelated, but there might be other cases where it's an act discreditable, but not, but that would, are we blocking ourselves out of our own code of conduct?
But can I just say, it sounds like that this statute is not mandatory, but discretionary. It still leaves it up to the board for us to interpret what's going to constitute the kind of activity that would not be appropriate for somebody holding our credentials. So it doesn't block us from talking about circumstances like we just discussed. Is that correct, Frank?
I think, yeah, I believe that's right. I mean, it's new language anyway, so it would, and we definitely, the board would have the ability to interpret it as it will. And again, at some point, someone could appeal, and maybe a court would overturn it, or maybe not. So absolutely, the board should not just, it is up to the board's and to discretion to interpret it. Yes.
Any comments, anyone? I think Marcia's is a real concern, but I guess if it leaves it to our discretion, what's the purpose of this rule?
Well, we still have to interpret it, based on the language that's there. You still have to show an interpretation that it's, that it would affect the safety or the competency to engage in public accountancy.
No, I understand that, Frank. I'm just going back to the legislation. I mean, why are they proposing the legislation if it really doesn't bind anything? Does it just confuse things? And I'm not going to say anything past that because I don't really want to get messed up in
I mean, I think this is
process if it doesn't keep us from doing the right thing.
right. No, as my understanding is that this is part of the effort to, make it or to lower barriers to people who have served time to be able to then make a living when they come out. There was a related but changed last year, and then there's I think that just limited the number of years that in some cases that that agencies can look back on in order to deny a credential. There was another, they tried to change this 46A80 that I mentioned a couple of times already, and that did not go through. But there was, in recent years, has been an effort again to just, again, lower the barrier to people who have served time to be able to make a living, to participate in professions when they get out.
Okay,
doesn't
that
mean
makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay, well, there's nothing that we really need to do about this unless we decide as a board that we would either weigh in a support or weigh in to say, we don't think this is good.
Right. And I'm sorry that Bonnie Stewart's not here, because I did speak with her. She actually brought this to my attention last week, and we spoke about it briefly, and they were going to, just because at the time it was so new, and there was a time constraint, and a lot of things, but she was going to just put in this, they were cautious about the language, and I think just to give themselves more time to look at it, because there was a hearing about it last Thursday, or the Thursday before that, whatever it was. Anyway, so I'm not sure if the board, and I have not spoken to her since, so I'm not sure. And when I spoke to her, it was before I spoke to Julianne Avalone, so I did not mention the 46A80 to her, so I'll have to follow up with that.
And Cindy.
Just to note, we just did have somebody come in from the society. Cindy's in right now, so.
Good morning. I'm so sorry I'm late. Yes, actually, Bonnie and she asked me to attend last night. She had something she had to do. And from what she's looked at, we do not have an issue with this. Oh, hold on. It's asking me to do something here.
So does anybody have any wish that we respond or take any action on this?
Cindy, excuse me, I just promoted you to panelist.
Okay, I
So you
see.
can.
Sorry, it popped up and said, do you want to be a panelist? And I wasn't
Yep.
sure what that meant.
No, I did that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, from what she's seen, we as a society don't have an issue with this at all.
Right. No, I was referring to the board members at this point. Thank you, Cindy.
Oh.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, I don't think that we need to make any kind of a formal statement. I mean, the language is probably gonna change anyway, so anything we said might become moot. I think we should just let the legislative process take its course.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, we move ahead. I think new business first is experience requirement. And Peter, you taking the lead on this, or? You're on mute, Pete.
Sorry, I was assuming it would be Frank, but I can take the lead if you'd like.
Whichever you two think is best.
Frank, you want to just take it? 'Cause
Sure,
I
I'll
think
be
you
quick.
have the things on it. Yep.
Okay, yes. So this was an issue that that Pete and Brian Riley from Travelers and I were asked at the last meeting to get together and look at the regulations and to see if we come up with either an interpretation or as I talked to it more internal, or whether we just need to change the language of the regulation itself. And this has to do with, as we looked at it, this is a 20-280-24C1A. And so I had forwarded to everyone, first, what if it was going to be a board policy as an interpretation, what we suggested. And again, this is just a suggestion, and we can be open to anyone else's suggestions as to what may work. we were looking at two things. One is what a valid certificate says, because currently the language of the statute says that for experience to be credited toward the satisfaction of the requirements of this section, that such experience shall be verified in such form as the board may require by a person acting in one of the following capacities to the applicant. One is as a supervising CPA holding a valid CPA certificate. And so we looked at what that would mean. And so our suggestion was to mean a registered certificate, and also that a valid, I guess we could say active CPA license also would qualify. Is that, so and again, there's that was, we have the, it also made clear that the verifier would hold the certificate or license for at least a 3-year period ending with the date of signing the off on the verification. And so I guess we want to start there. We also looked at what the term supervising CPA would mean, but that as far as the certificate, I probably should just take it one step at a time. And again, the question also is, a larger question is, should this just be a policy that of board interpretation, which is easier to change, or should it be, we look to change the language of the regulation itself, which takes longer, obviously, to take effect, but then would be harder to change. But if you feel strongly this is the way you should go, then you could do that as well. So I'll just leave it there.
I really think the first part of it really had to do with, I think we were always going back and forth on who could actually verify the experience. And I think what we were trying to accomplish is that it was either make it clear that it could be a licensee, a full licensee, or somebody that has like has a register, an active registered certificate with the department or whatever, was really, I think, what we were trying to clarify. And that kind of, to me, sums it up.
I like it.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I like it.
The second part of it seems to be what historically was the interpretation years and years ago as to what a supervising CPA is. So that's in line with what's been done before.
Right. And how does this impact the, was it the travelers program, or I keep getting my insurance companies mixed up?
So I think on the second piece, we just tried to add clarifying language just so that it's, it can be a chain of command. So I don't know if I'm thinking about it in a CPA firm, the engagement partner may not be directly supervising staff person, but it, it can, they're supervising the manager and the manager supervising the staff person or whatever. So in that chain of command, they could sign off.
And we're still, I think, at 3 years, the longest period of any state. Is everybody still happy with that?
Well, it's 2 years now, just to be clear. But it is longer than most states, which apparently are 1 year.
Yeah, I was thinking about the reason for that, and I assumed that, way back when, you were expected to get your CPA within 3 years, and you wouldn't be promoted to senior until you passed the exam. But things have changed, and now people are acting as managers without having passed the exam. And I don't think that's because people are less qualified than they were before, but just the way the exams are administered, et cetera, the process, I mean, you just can't sit for all 4 parts one time. Okay, so is there any action we have to take then?
Well, yes, you would have to first, is it going to be a policy? And if so, then you would need a vote that is going to be the board's policy going forward of the interpretation. Or if you would like us to make a revision in the regulations, also at the vote, and let us know that that's what you'd like us to do.
Well, I guess then my question is, do we need to do a revision in order to get to the answer?
And let me add on to that, if we do a revision of the regulations, then we have to get involved in that state process, right? So it's-
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
And-
a little arduous.
Right, but you could have the interpretation in the meantime be the way it's handled.
Right.
So just, it wouldn't be like you have to wait until the regulations go through to follow, this interpretation. So just to be clear on that.
Okay.
Well, Frank and Kat have been so successful in pushing stuff through the system during COVID. Of course, now COVID looks like it's winding down.
Knock on wood.
Nah, I don't want to press our luck. So does anybody want to put a motion on the table then?
I'll make a motion that we accept the policy as written.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Do we have any comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Would this be a good time to go to section 20-281, Frank?
I think it would be, yes.
Okay.
Unless you wanted to go to the late fees that's on
No,
the agenda.
no. I can sort of explain that one.
Okay.
I got a call from a CPA who is not pushing a particular answer to this, but was looking at the change in the rules regarding what commissions and contingency fees. And the circumstances are this, and I'm not even sure it fits as a commission contingency fee. The firm is part of a network, and the network has members at two levels, regular members and preferred provider members. And the firm provides just tax services to a client and occasionally brings in a consultant from the network to provide certain services. I can't remember what they were, but whether it's valuation or regular consulting. And had never, and the network prescribes specific fees for that. It's whether it's a revenue sharing or a fee for managing the engagement or whatever. But they had never accepted the money because they were concerned that it violated the commissions and contingencies. And I don't know, about 3 weeks ago, got a letter from this preferred provider that says, we owe you X amount of dollars. How do you want us to pay it? And he says, well, gee, I know the rules changed, but I don't know how they changed. I don't know whether I can accept this money or not. So this brought up two things. We have the new rule, which comes in, which has a turnover date as 1 October, correct? 2021?
Yes, that's, oops.
It says, so, okay, is it for any payments that are due after that? Or do I go back to when they performed the services on an accrual basis, cash or accrual? And by the way, this outfit was saying, I owe you for more than this year. And the other part of it was, which I thought, and Frank and I had discussed it a little bit, not the person who asked the question, was, is this indeed a referral or a contingency fee? To what extent does a network similar to a firm that has its own valuation service, consulting service, or et cetera, that can be applied or not, depending upon whether it's a test client or not, and what level? So I thought it would probably be a good idea to bring to the board to find out whether we should have any, I don't know, guidelines or interpretations. I mean, I may not have, you'll probably have to ask some questions because I'm sure I didn't explain that perfectly well. But You know, we have large firms that are all, you know, that have everything, one-stop shop in-house. You have small firms that are part of networks to provide the same one-stop access to, and do the same rules apply? And absent from that question, the original question is, do I go back for the services provided this year and see how much was before October 1 and how much was after October 1 and say you can pay me 40% of it, but not 60%? Or zero if it started before. Did I get that reasonably well, Frank?
Yes, yes. And again, this is new language for this, so they'll probably be the first of many that come before you to decide how to look at it.
Any thoughts? I mean,
I'll take a plunge with you all knowing that I'm a lawyer and not a CPA. And it seems that the analogy that John used of the, the really large firms that have a lot of specialized expertise, if you will, in-house, is the most apt analogy to a smaller firm that uses people or services on an as-needed basis. So I think that my personal feeling is we can have the same rules for both. The smaller firm that use with a network that will bring in experts as needed, and the larger firm, and whatever we've been doing with the large firms will apply to the smaller ones in a network.
and also trying to think of this from, I agree with Carla's statement. It says, what is sort of getting down to the protection of the public purpose, because that is the key here.
Right.
And yeah, it does seem to me that a different thing would apply if indeed we had an attest client here. Because, or maybe not, I don't know. And that's something to think about. I guess it depends on the types of search. But to Frank and I, well, I can't speak to Frank, but for me, when we were going over the regulation as written, it seemed like, how do you interpret this, since it wasn't totally clear, in a way that you maintain the protection of the republic of the public, and not and treat everybody consistently. Any other thoughts? Because I wouldn't expect to be able to come up with a detailed statement of policy and consideration, after a 10-minute discussion. But if we could then get everybody's thoughts on this and integrate what is there, then could come up with a proposal on how we should think about it. And by the way, don't. I've got a daughter that's a lawyer. I'm not gonna. Nobody has to apologize for being an attorney, but attorneys are trained at saying things so that it's clear, except of course when they're doing tax law, in which case they're being paid to say things where it's not clear. But
right.
Any thoughts? I mean, I've been on both sides of the big firm, small firm, and a network thing, and but we have people on the board that are big firm experience. They have people that are small firm experience and in between, and
May I ask a
we-
question?
yes,
I guess I think I get the whole desire to treat this, give the small firms, a chance to be treated as the larger ones are. But for a network, what would we be looking for? Would it have to be a written agreement, or as opposed to, well, we just have a unwritten agreement that, we'll send things to each other, or what? It's because, if we run into this and someone, I know that does I'm guessing it would only happen if someone did a poor job, or if a licensee were to send someone to a money manager or something or whatever, who ended up, ripping them off, and they'll say, hey, this person told me about them. And then we find out there's a fee, and, and that the question there would be, would there be an issue? We need some guidance there, I would think, as to what does this network look like? How official is it and all? And I know, and I understand a lot of times it's, this is new, and we're going to just run a lot of, facts and circumstances are going to be how we have to look at it. But I do think you need, you say network, what do you have in mind?
I agree, and say that when you're thinking this out, other things might pop out. Hey, this is a little slippery. This is, this is opening the door to behavior that might not be in the best interest of the public that uses CPA services and the people that use the whatever.
Because it seems like there would be three buckets that we would think about: is the big firms, the network firms, and then the small firms. And the small firms wouldn't be able to do this.
No, now if the small firm is like a tax practice, and the thing is, this is the one thing for some reason I couldn't print out. A licensee shall not recommend or refer a product or service to a client for a commission, and shall not accept a commission from a client during the period that the licensee is performing such client, blah, 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 the following services. And then it basically, that is covered by, so it appears for tax services, basically for tax services, then we come down to the CPA's original question. How can he figure this? Billing date, or or when they offer him the money, or does he have to divide the work between, for an engagement that crossed over? And maybe the question goes away when nobody no longer has that situation going forward. So that was a good comment. Maybe I'm thinking down the wrong line here. So going back to his original, it seems to fit into the new things. Now he's got a crossover period.
If you read that first sentence, it does talk about that the licensee shall not recommend or refer, this service to a client for a commission, and shall not accept. So if you go back to when was the referral, could that be a distinguishing factor of how we would interpret what would be acceptable, pre and post the October 1st date?
Yeah. And then it goes on to say that is covered by any historical financial statements that are involved in any of the following, and then basically says attest services. So it does exempt tax services.
Mhm.
I don't even know. They never trusted me with taxes.
So I'm
So-
not understanding the analogy to a large firm, because when would, a large firm, they're not going to be paying a commission to themselves, are they? I mean,
No, but they're going to be sharing the profits.
In what?
between the services,
Between member firms, right?
between member firms, yeah.
In a large firm or in a network?
Not in a network. Maybe some do. I've been part of 2 networks and none of them did that. But I'll bet you, but other than in Connecticut, you could have you could have arrangement where you referred work to another network firm and you'd get a piece of it as long as it wasn't a test related. Well,
But if I'm in a large firm and I refer somebody to another department or another service within our firm, I'm not earning a commission.
you're
Am I
not
earning
personally earning a commission, no, but that is in the profit pool. Now, if you're
Right.
doing it to another network firm, the money for that isn't going into the profit pool.
But John, you're not suggesting that violates this section. You're just saying
No.
you're trying to find a way you're saying that's okay. You're just looking for, see if it's possible to treat non-large firms similarly in, what's more or less a similar circumstance.
Yeah, actually, I'm confusing things because I'm thinking of 2 things. One is, how are we going to interpret the cutoff date for this person's asked the question? And the second one was, is there a need to look at policy to make sure that firms, depending on whether a network or a big integrated firm, are treated the same on this, or is the latter a non-issue? Am I overthinking and making an issue out of something that isn't?
Well, on the first one, I would think we'd want to you would prorate the fee that otherwise would people say, go backwards and say, oh, all those fees pay me now. That's why I would think you would.
Right. Yeah, you could go back. Yeah. Understand that.
I mean, I would
Well, I
agree. I
see a
think
lot
you
of-
can only
I
get
s-
paid a commission for whatever's the base of the commission, whatever activity happened after October 1st when it was permitted. Anything before that.
Yep.
Bad luck.
I see a lot of heads shaking yes. So do we need to make that official, Frank, or can we just take that as an understanding?
Well, if you want it to be an official policy, you would have to vote on it. But if you want it just to be the general sense, then I guess not. But that's up to you.
I think it'll go away soon enough.
Excuse me?
I think it'll go away soon enough, the timing.
Well, yeah, it will. It will. Yeah, it's nice to have issues that just go away with the passage of time. Okay. Moving on to late fees. This is yours, Kat, isn't it? Or no?
I can speak, it's not mine. I hope no issues are mine. But basically, I don't know if you have any questions about that long email that I sent. I'm so sorry. But basically, we don't really, well, Frank and I tried to look, but we don't know when that $150 and $50 per month fee started. I think it came, right, Frank, it started long before we took over the board.
Correct. Right. And
Oh.
we've been using that, and then we just try to go back and find out, we're presuming it's a board policy because it's not in a regulation or anything. We just couldn't find it, which goes to the comment that Mr. Niedermeyer made about finding a centralized place for the policies, which is a great idea.
But anyway, so right now what happened is every CPA license or certificate has to be renewed by December 31st. And if you miss that deadline, your license or registration lapses. And then you have, right now licensing, I believe, give them until the end, like the whole month of January to reinstate. But if you go after that, then you have to submit a reinstatement application. And basically it asks you two questions. Have you been practicing? Like, did you practice while your license lapsed? The answer no, usually, like, you know, when you let your license go because you're not practicing or you're moving out of state or you're just deciding not to hold a license, then the answer is no. And that way the fee would be the same as if you renewed your license. And then you just have to show that you have done 40 CPEs, you know, within the past 12 months. But if you answer that you have practiced during the lapse time, then the fee is the renewal fee, $565 plus 150 late fees plus $50 per month. And it doesn't always work out in all circumstances. So we're just asking the board, maybe, you know, to explain where that came from, if you remember, and if you want to keep the fees, or what do you think is fair? And, you know, like, to get started, we have that one person who continued practicing for 10 years. And so if we do like $50 a month for the past 10 years, even if he were to pay it, is it really, you know, what you want coming back?
Correct.
And I think the reason for that is he has to be paying more than others as far as the license, but he has not had the had to pay for the CPEs and dealt with that. So he would in effect be saving that on those. And so is there a way to make it hurt a little bit because he hasn't done those?
So here's another issue. If he decides, if he doesn't pay, we can bring an enforcement action before the board. At the end, we can refer that to the state's attorney for criminal action. But if he decides to pay, then basically that's the, like, you know, that's what the fee is for. Like, hey, you get reinstated, you come into compliance, even though we don't backdate the license. It's like saying, okay, I admit it, you know, here's a fee. And then so we can't do anything with that license, with that person. Do you think that's something we should allow?
I have always been amazed at how many people genuinely go through years of work without recognizing that there's a difference between a certificate and a license in Connecticut.
This person did it on purpose. He had a license, but he let it lapse when we went after him. When we said, you know, you're not in compliance with CPE, and he just let it lapse because he didn't want to comply with it. And, you know, I think he counted on the fact that no one would go after him. And so we found about it afterwards.
That's an integrity issue, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So that is part of the equation. Like if he just decides to pay and we can't, you know, go after the integrity issue, is, you know, is that what we would want?
Is your point that the, if you were to assess $50 a month or something like that, that is not enough?
Right. I think, first of all they have to do, so let's say your license lapsed for 5 years. All you have to pay is $50 a month, but then you don't have to have complied with CPE within, you know, of any of those 5 years. So I don't really know how much money that would equate to.
Is there a difference between a late fee though and a penalty?
Yes. Oh, what kind of penalties?
Well, I would think there could be a penalty for the integrity issue with regard to this.
See, that's the thing, that if you pay the late fee, that we can't go after the penalty. So that the late fee is the penalty. That's the only fee.
I don't know where the $150 came from that you were saying. I don't remember that. And I don't know that that was a set policy in the earlier years before the changeover to your department. Do you think it was a set policy?
That's the only thing that we can think of, because it's not written anyway. I mean, it was there was a you know, when the board came to us from the Secretary of State's office, one of the things we inherited was a table that broke down different violations and what the penalties or fees were based on that, and that included, for not renewing on time, $150 for the first 3 months period, and then $50 for each month after that. But it was on an annual basis, right? So I think we would also still hit them with the license fees for each of those years. No?
I don't think so. Yeah, I
No.
don't think so.
We treat them differently, but okay, because that would really jack the price up. You hit them with $650 for not doing the or $625. I'm sorry for not doing the CPEs, and then that's the late fee.
See, that's the thing. If they renewed every year, they would have had to pay $565 every year. But they let it lapse for 5 years. They just pay the end, which is $565 plus the $625 fee, and that's it. And so,
Right.
and they don't have to do CPEs.
And the $50 a month is $600 a year.
Well, it's $150 for maybe it comes out to that, right? It's $150 through the first 3 months, just blanket. Yeah.
I think it was Martha's question. I think is to the point here is there's one way of just collecting a late fee, and two, and I'm unclear as the ability for a penalty. I mean, before I realized that he purposely let it drop, I was figuring, gee, the quality of mercy is not strained. Let's not hit him up too badly. But this was a cold calculation.
So the question we got asked from this person, another person, was, why the late fee? So what's the late fee for?
I think the late fee is really designed for the person who just gets incredibly busy, thinks he or she had done it and finds themselves in a January, February, or March with an oops.
I totally agree. I think by the way it's designed and the way it's worked, it really works only in circumstances where the license is like just less than a year, late. But it doesn't really work for longer than that. But the way it's written right now, it's just one rule. And so that's why we're hoping that, the board would clarify and look at longer terms.
But if this person was not, was practicing, we couldn't get a license for each of those years paid plus $50 per month on each license. So 2012, they would owe since they're practicing, they would owe the license fee and then $50 a month on that. And then 2013, the license fee, then $50 a month on that one. So it just keeps compounding. Would that work?
Yes, I think it would.
Yeah, plus I think you should build in also CPE, like they didn't have to do CPE when they should have had, they would have been required to if they had renewed.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure we have to put the cost of that in the thing. After all, I never spent a dime on CPE the years I was with Deloitte.
Or you could make them do 40
Well,
CPE.
there's also
Yeah,
the
I don't think
time
she's
though.
saying cost. It's more, actually doing the CPE in
Oh,
addition
doing
to the
it.
financial cost.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a cost. Yeah, there is a price you can put on the time. Sure.
Yeah.
I think they have to pay the licensing fee as Kat just described, because otherwise it's to their financial benefit to do this trick. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I agree. It's sort of how long I can get away.
Right. And I think, in the past, when I remember hearing about this kind of stuff, it was the oops kind of situation. It was like all of a sudden it's February and somebody was ill in the household or something like that, and they messed up. And, I never heard of anything like years, maybe a few months.
I feel like we've had cases in the past where people have been practicing without a license, and part of the, the case against them was the penalties were like all of the back years, the 565 for all the years they were not practicing without a license. I don't know. That's my recollection from when we were under the Secretary of
Right,
State's office or whatever that. I don't
yes.
know. So I don't think they could get out of the mess as cheaply as.
Okay, we do
We're
have the
stating here.
authority to assess a penalty.
Yes. Late fees. This-
Yeah, you have
actually-
the authority to assess up to $50,000 actually.
Well, to me, the penalty isn't for not doing their CPE. It's the penalty is for them practicing without a license, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of issues. I mean, the main one is practicing without a license, but then there's, an additional CPE issue, which I think is separate,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I guess that's, I'm saying I see them as two separate issues, I guess. One is. the
Yes.
They may be, and I think probably are two separate issues, but I don't think we can ignore either one of them. And then if you add up the penalties or costs of the two together, I mean, this case really seems to cry out for a substantial I keep thinking of the word punishment. That's not exactly right. Penalty of some type.
Sanctions.
Yes.
So to address that, what you could do is set a limit on the ability to reinstate. So for example, if you think that 5 years is a maximum, after that, the case has to be brought before the board. Then you can decide case on case by case basis, based on the circumstances, what sanctions should be placed on that individual. And fortunately, we don't have many of those. It's not like we're going to have 30 a year. So if that's what you like to do, again, that's part of the determination is, what would you like? So based on what I've seen, if you want to keep the $150 late fee for the first 3 months and then $50 per month, the current works pretty well if it's less than 1 year lapse. If it's more than that, what I've heard, from Marsha and Martha is maybe make it so they have to pay the $565 for every year, right? Plus, and that can't be the same. That's the only thing, because then they would just let it lapse because they'd be in the same position that they would have been in.
May I suggest maybe the $625 for not doing CPEs?
Well, no, I was gonna yes, but I was gonna tackle that separately. So right now it's just a late fee. So let's say the fee every year you would have had to renew, pay $565 plus a late fee for every year or whatever, and then stop that at whatever years, 5 years, 3 years, whatever you determine. And after that, you just can't reinstate at all. You have to go before the board. And then on top of the late fees, determine the CPE equivalent fee, or if you want to make sure they do 40 hours of CPE for every year, that means you have to sit through 600 CPE courses, so be it, but those are the options.
How often does this happen? I mean, 5 years seems like a long time. It seems like maybe we should be involved at 2 years or 1 year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know the extent of it because a lot of it is dealt, by the licensing unit. They don't refer things to enforcement. I haven't heard about any. I don't know if Frank has, but
But we could let them know. We could certainly tell them, hey, at this, if you get something that's this many years or more than 1 year, then refer it to us. They can certainly do that.
Right. I'm just answering Marsha's question is how often. I really don't know. I did have a case where last month where a person didn't reinstate 2018, And he paid the late fees and everything, but it turned out when we looked into it, and he did have a license in another state. So even though he said, I practice, we looked into it, he didn't practice illegally because he had, practice privilege. And he answered the question truthfully, not knowing, our question was not designed to capture that. So we are in the process of changing the application to show that, hey, did you have another license? So maybe you were practicing under practice license, you didn't really need a Connecticut license. So in that case, we are refunding his money. But so it's nuanced. Each case is a little different. We really don't know until we look into the details.
But in this case, he didn't have a license under mobility. He knowingly
Right.
stayed off just what? Because he didn't want to pay the money?
Right.
I mean, I think I just got an issue with the good moral standing.
5 years seems like a long time to kind of wait. If you kind of build it into the understanding of the person who recognizes that they need to, keep this current, and you make it a tighter window where they'd have to reapply to get reinstated, through the board, whether it's 2 years or 5 just seems like a long time for us to not get involved in situations like that, and to deter the potential behavior and the decisions of the people that are looking to game the system.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it should be 1 year or two. I don't know. I would look to the staff to comment on that.
Well, I don't recommend 1 year because to me, I don't know, based on what I know, it seems a little short. Maybe 2 years, but definitely not one. I have no opinion as to how much longer than 1 year, but I would recommend not 1 year.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. 1 year could be a, oops, screwed up. I
Yeah.
thought I did it. 2 years, I'd better be able to explain myself.
Yeah.
Do we send reminders, on this, or is that something we, after a year, if someone had been licensed and not renewed?
Licensing sends
Yeah.
out reminders, and I think it's October of every year that, hey, the renewal season, it's time to renew to everybody. Yes.
And they do it in December after it's lapsed.
That's
that,
correct.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Okay. That's good.
After the one-time lapse, so I don't know. If
I think there was one time that licensing sent more than one reminder after the fact, like in January, because I know that there were some cases that I had, and two of them, one was not practicing anymore and just didn't say anything, and then I think the other two did pay whatever the the 150 because they just said they, for whatever reason, had forgotten. But they were reminded in February, so it wasn't like it wasn't a year; it was a month. But this is after licensing. It sent 3 emails. They sent it to me, and I was able to get their attention.
So to answer your question, Tim, yes, we like licensing does.
Okay. Yeah, and
remind.
whatever, if we're sending those reminders and maybe we already have the consequences of if they're doing something and not renewing, by the way, here's what the penalties and late fees would be. If we decide to, shorten, put a limitation, let's say it's 2 years, you make it very clear in the reminder, as a reminder, if you don't, here's the consequence, or here's the implication, to really get it front and center to say, we're serious about this. And, if you decide to try to game, that's not going to work for you.
Yep.
Okay, well, we seem to have a sense, but I'm unclear as to what action we have to take or should take.
So I think it would be helpful to get a vote on policy agreed on, at least so that we can know going forward with some of the outstanding cases right now. So I guess the first question I would pose to narrow the issues down is do you want to keep the $150 fee, like the current, $150 for first 3 months, and then $50 per month afterwards, up to 1 year? Do you want to keep that structure right now? Or do you want to keep, go forward up to 2 years, or?
Okay, there's two sides to that. One, if somebody goes for 5 years, does that mean we can only charge him other than a penalty for the 2 years?
No,
Yeah.
I was gonna
1 year?
break it up, so that's just up to 1 year, and then what we're gonna do from 1 year to
Oh,
2
I hear
years,
you.
or like to 3 years, or whatever the board decides the break point is. So I was just gonna take it baby steps, but if you want to do it all at once, that's fine too.
Okay, so the first part of this is for how long do we keep the, gee, you screwed up, here's a $50 a month fee. For 2 years. Any comments on that? We could do this piecemeal, I guess.
Would it get bigger after 2 years, or do we stop at 2 years?
Then I presume after 2 years, we're going to address after this. Because after 2 years is then more serious territory.
Well, if you're gonna go up to 2 years, I would also ask, what about CPE? Like right now, if they do up to a year, they have to show, well, you're supposed to have 40 CPE every year. But if they
Correct.
renew even a few months late, right now, they seem to get away with the previous 40, for the previous year, because they only have to show 40 at the time they renew. Is that what you want to keep? Or do you want to, so I think my last question on my list is, if a person renews even in June, right? So they're only 6 months late, but that's the end of the CPE period. So when they they have to show, when they renew in June, they have to show 40 CPE to reinstate. But then when they renew again in December, the regs right now say they don't have to show 40 CPE because they just completed it. But to me, it seems unfair because they only did it for the year before and they got away with this time. So
Wait, what? Is now, wait, so are they renewing? They're renewing those, so that when they renew again, they still have to have another 40 hours.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. But then when I read the regulations, it says you don't have to. That's why I was confused.
Well, that's if they reinstate it, right? And it was a legitimate reinstatement, not a renewal. If they renewed late, they would have to come up with another 40 hours. If they were allowed to reinstate, then that would be different. I agree with that.
I'm trying to look at the regs I sent. The reg says the holder of a certificate whose license has been reinstated during the months of January through July need not complete or report on the completion of any additional CPE credits during the current the CPE year.
Right, that's what I said.
All right, so your understanding is, let's say they reinstate in June, they have to show 40 CPE for that reinstatement, correct?
Right, for the reinstatement, right. No, I was differentiating a reinstatement with a late renewal. Oh, I see what you're saying, because technically on the well, yeah, I don't know. I see what you're saying though, because I guess what we say on the application.
It sounds like the purpose of that wording was so that you put 40 hours in a year, and because you were late a couple of months, you didn't have to throw in another 40 hours. Is that correct?
That's how I read it, but again, I think it's pretty unclear, and a person can use that to say, hey, look, I just reported 40, I don't have to report again. But I'd be happy to be wrong.
Well, because I think, I mean, the spirit of the reinstatement is a legitimate person who let it lapse, meant to, because they weren't practicing. And now, hey, they're going to need it again. Versus the one what we're trying to figure out is how do we prevent the gaming of the system, right? Yeah, and then, you know, sometimes it's hard to tell just on a piece of paper or on a screen what the person's intent was. But I you know, I think part of it is because we do ask them right for the reinstatement, were you practicing during this time? And if so, this is what you have to pay. That's on that is on the application right now. So great. Okay.
I guess we can interpret it different ways, but as long as we get a clarification from the board that your intention is 40 CPE is required every year, no matter when you renew, no matter when you reinstate, right? You don't get to do away with it. So then we can like look at the facts and circumstances of each case.
I
So
would
let's
agree
say,
with that, yeah.
okay, so let's say if you go up to 2 years, that means you have to show 80 CPEs, correct?
Yeah, if you've been practicing in the interim.
Okay, so do you want to keep the requirement of 80 CPEs shown completed, which, you know, or do you want to put a monetary, like
No monetary. That's just my opinion. Everybody else can come in. It's the purpose of continuing professional education, although I guess everybody knows, I think sometimes OJT is of much higher value than 99% of CPE classes, but the rule is, and there's intent to make sure that people keep up to date with standards, is you get 40 hours per bloody year. And you can't replace that with, oh, by the way, pay another $50.
Right.
I think that that's only if you practice if you
Agreed.
Agreed. So what I'm hearing right now is, do you want to put okay, so I'm sorry, for up to 2 years, if you're late up to 2 years, you have to pay the $565 renewal fee or whatever equivalent every year for every year that you would have done anyway. Plus you have to pay the $50 a month late fee, and you still have to complete the CPEs up to 2 years.
Yeah. And after all, if somebody doesn't renew because they're fighting cancer for a year and out, they can always ask for a waiver. So, you know, they technically haven't been practicing for a year.
So do you want to decide what to do after 2 years?
Well,
Go to the board.
yeah, then well, after 2 years, aren't you talking about penalties as opposed to just late fees? Bonnie has joined us, I see.
Yeah, it should be penalties after 2 years in addition to late fees, right?
Right, penalty based on facts and circumstances. We've already got a limit in the law, don't we? In existing law? Or do
So
we not?
the benefit of setting a generic penalty is that it's quicker. Like, you know, a person can just pay that at the time of renewal instead of having to bring a case before the board. So if you wanted to, you can just say, you know, from 2 to 3 years, you have to pay a penalty of X amount. Then the person can just pay that and then get their license reinstated. And that would apply to everybody, you know, so that it just, a lot of these late fees at the application time is really to just, you know, for administrative ease.
Okay, well,
I'm
don't
fine
think I
with that
would-
concept of the penalties going forward after 2 years, but is it going to be one set penalty, or is it going to be, will it go higher the longer somebody comes back? So, you know, $500 and after 3 years, but maybe $750 after you go up to 6 or 7 years.
How about the 2 to 3 years set penalty. And then after that, you have to apply to the board
Yeah.
on facts and circumstances.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah, it's not like we're gonna get a whole lot of cases, I hope.
Kat, can you explain to me, you're sending note, like, if a person doesn't renew, you just can all out into the future, you just keep sending them notices if they haven't renewed their license? I'm not sure I understand.
I can get more information from licensing exactly, but Frank can speak, but I have seen notices going out after the lapse time. And I'm not sure about February. Frank, you said you've seen in February, right? So I know
Yeah,
that
the ones I was talking about, I can't remember what it was. There was some special case involved with them. I can't remember what the issue was, but yeah, so but no later than February would they, or early February would they be getting any reminders at that point. I think then licensing has to move on. So yeah.
because a lot of people don't renew because they don't practice anymore. So we don't assume that it's all, oversight. So I know that they get I definitely know that they get a reminder in October. And then they get one in December, I believe. I'm not sure about that, but then afterwards they get another one. Because I know that we give them a whole month of January free. We don't assess a fee. So there might be one in January somewhere.
I guess I'm trying to understand this person that went 10 years without renewing their license. Like, how would you even know that, I guess? It just seems like after a year or two, they just fall off and DCP is not sending any more notices. So then how would you know that he's been practicing?
That's the issue, right? That's the issue that sometimes I ask other states, like, how do you find out people practicing without a license? Because in our case, we don't know until somebody complains.
So in this case, how did you know the guy was practicing 10 years without a license?
It was a consumer complaint, and then we search our records.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
I suspect that's
based
the
on a
only way you'll
complaint.
ever really find out.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard stories of other states who have investigators, and there's one this guy told in Mississippi where yeah, I think that someone when he refused to, they actually go out and grab the physical license that people have on their board, and he would go around and I guess people who had been revoked or in these cases, I guess if they know that they should not be practicing, he'd go to their offices and announce who he was. And if he went in and saw there was an empty hook on the wall, he knew they were hiding their certificate. and he told the story he said, I know I'm going to hell because there's a guy went in, he was on oxygen, and I still went ahead and took his certificate. But but yeah, otherwise there isn't any way to know, really.
Okay.
Okay, so trying to get to wrap up here. I've heard from a couple of people that up to 2 years or is up to 3 years, it's late fee, and after that, it's got to be sent to the board because we're in penalty territory.
I feel like after 2 years or whatever, I want to know what that person has been doing and if they've been actively practicing with
Yeah, I like
a
your time
license and
frame.
what are they
Yeah.
doing, because I don't know.
I just think 1 year can be human error, 2 year is a problem.
Yeah.
Do we need to do something out for the attorneys? Do we need to do something formal on this? Or was just a sense of the board sufficient?
Frank, should we ask for a vote?
I
Well,
think
we
it
gotta
would
put a
be,
motion
it
for
would give
that.
us a little more authority. So in case we got pushback, sure.
Okay, need somebody to propose a motion. And I'm not just going to look at Marcia.
Is it going to be what is it going to be, a motion for a board policy?
Right. Pete? You want to propose You seem to,
If you can
Put it
tell me what
together.
I'm proposing,
huh?
if you can tell me what I'm proposing.
Well, I'll just recap of what I heard from before, which is up to 2 years, a person can reinstate by paying the renewal fee for each year and a late fee of $150 for the first 3 years, plus $50 a month for each subsequent month, plus 80 hours of CPE
And
completed.
that the $50 a month is on each certificate. So the second year, it's $100 a month. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, when you said each certificate, you mean each year?
Each year that, so that by
Yes,
the, okay,
like every month thereafter.
yep. So by the time you're in your second year, it's $50 a month on the first year's certificate and another $50 a month on the first year's renewal and another $50 a month on the second year's renewal.
Yes,
So you're going from $50 to $100 a month.
no, I was,
That's what Marcia was proposing,
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
or we just keep it at $50 a month, late fee for the 2 years, and then it's choice A and choice B.
I think it should be on each year that, so that after 2 years, it's $100 a month, one for each year, and then 3 years, it's 150. Because it just doesn't stop. It's the $50 is tied to the year.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with money. I just didn't understand that there's a different certificate for each year. I thought it was just a certificate that they.
That was my error in calling it a certificate, a renewal or,
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, so you want to put it in, if we could just get it from somebody all in the late fee for the first 2 years and then the referral to the board after. If anybody can put that together.
It's a late fee regardless of whether or not the person is practicing or not practicing. Is that,
No, only if they're practicing.
Only if they're practicing.
okay. So we're gonna keep the existing 565, 40 hours. If they're reinstating and they're not.
Correct.
Okay, I can't make a motion, but I'll try to restate that we have that the person must catch up to or show 40 hours of CPE per each year, and that they get charged $50 late fee per month for the first year. And sorry, Rose just arrived. And $100, one for the continuation of the first, $100 a month for the second year, and that after that, it be referred to the board. Did that catch everything? Except it can't be mine.
Can I make the motion based on how John just described our discussion?
Second,
Second. Okay, motion is second. Do we have any further comments?
Just one clarification.
Yes.
Kat, didn't you say the late fee is going to be $150 per month for the first 3 months, and then afterwards it's $50 per month the first year?
Yes, I don't know why they lumped the first 3 months together, but it works out the same, which is still $50 a month, but I really don't know for whatever reason they clumped the
Yeah,
first 3.
Oh,
Okay. It's 150 for the 3 months, not 150
okay.
each of those months. Yeah.
But
Okay.
it means, right, so if they renew in February, it's still 150.
Yes,
All right. I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we have a motion and a second for this policy, and Any further comments, questions, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, I left part of it out. And then after the first 2 years, it'd be referred to the board. Go back to all in favor
Aye.
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 and any opposed? It carries. Okay. Extension waiver requests.
So fortunately, we have a very short list this time. The first person, we have one person to add by 2/3 votes. Would you like to do that at the end or? would you like
We
to do that
better.
now?
Do you have a name?
Yes, his name is Timothy Frawley.
Okay, if you have a motion to add Timothy Frawley in the agenda,
I'll make that motion.
okay. Okay, I guess we got him. I don't know who's the motion, who's the second.
I'll second.
Take
it.
your pick, Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
So the first person we have there all for exam credit extension, Ryan Besner. He's requesting to have his FAR credit extended for 1 month. It expired December 31st, 2021, and he wanted to request for extension up to
Did he give you
January
documentation?
30th.
Did he give you documentation on the medical issue?
Oh,
If he-
Kat, you froze.
Frozen?
Looks like, yeah, she froze.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see, I'm going through the stuff.
On the email, it doesn't talk about,
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Yes,
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I didn't even get a signal that says anything. Anyway, so it's based on one of the reason I sent you yesterday.
And I'm just asking if you had backup to the medical reason. If you had documentation.
No, I do not, but I could ask for it. He said that they, because I didn't know what to ask for because he said they were able to give birth to a healthy daughter in August 21. And, you know, I could ask for the birth certificate, but he said that having a 6-month-old daughter,
oh, was this the couple that went through the miscarriages?
right?
Okay, yeah, no, they didn't provide proof. Well, I'll accept their word on that one.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion a second. Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
The second person we have is Mark Polkowski, and he's requesting for his audit and his regs credits extended to March 29th, 2022. His audit credit expired January 20th, 2022, and his regs expired December 23rd of this past year. And it's based on the medical reasons that I sent to you yesterday.
And so on this one, it didn't look like he missed any work for these medical reasons. So I'll make a motion to deny.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions?
Did he
Okay.
say what the medical reason was?
God, I gotta back to this. It's gonna take me 3 minutes to go through the paper, so can you add it? Kat, what was this medical reason?
Well, I didn't,
I think the purpose of the email was to,
not
Not
discuss it
discussed.
publicly,
Avoid.
so.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to resend it so you can look at it real
No,
quick?
no, I've got it. And I got it right, finally found it.
I can
Oh,
So-
yeah, okay, yeah, I would have the same question as Marcia. Medical conditions didn't seem to be sufficient to stop working for a long period.
Mhm.
So we've got the motion and the second. Can we vote? Or-
Oh, okay, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
So the next person we have two Chinese nationals. The next two, first one is GZ Zhang, and he's requesting for his FAR credit extended to December 31st, 2022. It expired December 31st last year. And reason is, he said, lack of vaccine, he cannot travel to take the exam. So if you recall, you provided extension for multiple people last meeting.
Not that it makes any difference, it would be Georgia.
It's funny because they must communicate to each other, because all of a sudden I'm getting these emails or like, email to me personally asking for these extensions. I don't know how they know my name, but it's.
Oh,
So,
they've got Weibo and WeChat groups out there that
Yeah.
pass it around.
and they all say the same thing. And
Yep,
It would be the same facts and circumstances as one that we approved last month.
yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
I-
Aye.
Okay, and that gives us our one additional.
Okay, the person I didn't go over is a Wan Zhen Yang, and he didn't ask for a specified date. He just asked for an extension. So would you approve for the same date, which is December 31st? I'm sorry. Okay, so the last person that you added was Timothy Frawley, and he's requesting for his regs credit extended to February 8th. It expired December 31st, 2021. And so it's basically a 2 months extension. And the reason is good cause and medical reason that I sent to you on March 2nd.
So on this one, it didn't seem like anything after the last extension was health related. It was just not passing. And so that, for that reason, I would make a motion to deny.
Any comments or second? Or alternative?
It was not a short letter.
It was what?
It was not a short letter.
All of them seem to want to write War and Peace. We need to go one direction or another. So I need somebody else to either make an alternative motion or a second.
And this is an extension for how long? Was it 1 month?
2. It expired December 31st, and he's asking for an extension to February 8th.
I believe it's probably his next test date, I assume.
Had he shared any documentation on his, sounds like he had some medical issues himself.
No, I did not ask, but I could.
That might help.
That an alternative motion that we go back and request medical?
I'll make that motion.
I'll withdraw my original motion if I have to do.
Okay, second, Now, just in terms of, I guess we'll need another further extension because we won't meet for 2 months unless we're going to follow up on. Okay, well, aside from that, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Oh, one question, did I run over, is Wan Jung Yang need a separate motion here? Or was he or she covered by the,
I thought we were covering them both.
yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Moving on to the Bonnie section, if you'd like.
I apologize, family.
No need.
Emergency. I just, I'm wondering if you did cover the issues at the beginning regarding experience rating and verification. If not, I did pull together some data on that. Could we put it on the agenda for the next meeting? And then that way, Mr. Chair, I can actually share that data with you so that a decision could be made for the next meeting? Or did you already go through everything?
We really went through the definition of an understanding of who could be the certifier and the definition there.
And so you're all set?
I don't know. Frank and Pete, I guess I got two questions on that. Did what we did cover the programs such as the,
Yes, I believe the policy that we voted on would accommodate programs such as the travelers, because it would
and then my other,
fit into their thing. I don't think it would do anything for certain people that have come up previously. I think I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name.
Mr. Katz.
It wouldn't do anything for Mr.
So
Katz.
he's still out in the cold.
Yes.
Okay.
So could I pull together some information to share with the group for the next meeting on that so that you can see what other states are doing?
I'd like to see it.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
I'm happy with the decision at this, but you know, when the facts change, I change my mind. And often when the facts don't change.
Okay, so I will work on that. Mr. Chair, are you still the point person on this or just bring it back to everybody? How would you like me to proceed?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to see that as soon as you get it, we can send it out to everybody.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Then that was my only question. I don't have any additional comments, statements, or anything else for this meeting. Thank you.
As an informal comment, I'm happy with the way we came down so far, but I do kind of think that Mr. Katz was a worthy colleague. And I'm sorry that he's frozen out, but I understand that it's got to look beyond a single individual. So, yes, Frank.
All right, not unless anybody else has something else, I do have something to say. And this, I just wanted to let you all know, actually, this is going to be my last Board of Accountancy meeting. I'm retiring from state service at the end of the month for a variety of reasons. You know, I just want to say I've enjoyed working with each of you, each member of the board. Mark Aronowitz when he was there, and with Bonnie as well on the board business or other things. Of course, you know, Kat, it goes without saying, has been a tremendous help. And just to let you know what the plan is, that Julianne Avalone, who is our legal director and very competent, will be kind of the transition person in place of me in the meantime. They will be replacing me with an attorney as soon as they possibly can, so there still will be two attorneys dealing with accountancy during all the time. Plus, you know, just in time for me to leave, we're going to have an investigator who's going to be working for accountancy. And Kat and I are actually meeting with her on Thursday, and she's already done some work anyway, but anyway. And we hopefully, there's a paralegal will be available too to assist. So there will actually be, you guys are all going to be in better hands after this. But I just wanted to just say thank you all for these last almost 7 years, and I enjoyed working with you all.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
God, it hasn't been
Very
7 years,
much.
has it?
Not quite 7 years. It was June of 2016. So this will be
Wow.
6 years.
Oh.
6 years. I apologize. My math is awful. I'm a lawyer, not an accountant. Come on.
You've
Good
been
material,
fantastic.
Frank.
Well, I'd like to say, I hope congratulations and thank you for all your work. And say it ain't so, Joe.
Well, I got so much work between now and then. I may be sold here in May, so we'll see.
Well, I would entertain a motion for a vote of thanks from the board. And then
I'll make that motion.
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. I almost didn't want to say anything just to avoid something like that, but I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And then I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. And second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay well. Bye-bye.